Welcome to Session 7. This is an interesting session because we're going to put some things together that you might not think about, at least I didn't personally, until I worked with Dr. Becca Johnson. There is a correlation between your anger and the amount of stress in your life. Dr. Becca Johnson co-wrote this book with me. And in a whole chapter she works on, she talks about in her research and in the research that the more stress people are under, their anger comes to the surface much more often. A lot of your anger and my anger has to do with living a hurried, stressful life, and under pressure, things just come out. We're going to talk in this session about how to minimize stress and maximize God. Why don't you open that study guide and let's jump in together. If you have a pen, and I hope you do, I want you to pull it out. I want to give you an equation. And we're going to use this for the next two sections, but I want you to write on the top of your notes, AQ equals, this is like, algebra. AQ equals E as in Edgar, plus P as in Peter, O times O426. I wish I had I'll get that to you again. Ready? AQ equals E plus P times O426. AQ is your anger quotient. You have an IQ. We now know we have emotional intelligence. You have an AQ. You have an anger quotient. And your anger quotient is your environment plus your perspective times your obedience to Ephesians 4:26. Ephesians 4:26 says, it's the good summary of anger in Scripture. Be angry. That's a command. Yet, do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your anger, lest you give the devil a foothold or an opportunity. So your anger quotient talks about the environment that you're in. Certain environments raise the possibility of anger. Certain perspectives that you have either increase or decrease your relationship with anger, and it's all tied into, no matter what your environment or perspective, obeying Ephesians 4:26. And so in the first half of tonight, I want you to circle the P, or the E, if you will, and I want to talk about your environment. I want to talk about the environment that can allow you to be either more angry or the environment that can cause you to be far less angry. And I want to read just a little section. My teammate, I've never teamed up and done a book with someone before, and it's been kind of fun to get a woman's perspective, and especially someone that's worked with so many people. She's a practicing psychologist and counselor, and she did this experiment, just a couple paragraphs. She said, one day I decided to keep a mental log of all the times I felt angry. I wanted to know how often I got angry, and what I got angry about, and what triggered the anger. I encourage you to try this too. The results were surprising and quite humbling. I was shocked at how often angry feelings came to the surface. Prior to consciously counting these episodes, I had mistakenly assumed that anger was only an occasional visitor to my emotional arsenal. I was wrong, very wrong. I had to be honest about my feelings of anger, frustration, and actual infuriation. I had felt either flits or fits of anger at not being able to find my favorite socks, running out of milk, the kids taking too long to get ready, the slow driver in front of me, the long wait at the pharmacy, the store that was closed on Monday, having to put gas in the car, the price of the gas in the car, the long line in the slow service when I got gas in the car, the kids leaving their clothes on the floor again, the computer freezing on me again, and I was only halfway through the day. Though some of these feelings could describe fleeting frustrations, when I was honest, far too many of them were actual anger. Then came another humbling lesson. I realized that most of the day-to-day anger I experienced was all about small, insignificant stuff that I face all the time. When I stopped and looked at how often I got angry and what I got angry about, I had to admit that it happened too much and too often. Then I took a further step. I asked, what is it that contributes to the anger of my day-to-day life? And the answer was surprisingly simple. Stress. Stress. The relationship between stress and anger in my life isn't unusual. The more pressured, burned out, overwhelmed, or busy that you become, the more your anger will lie at the foot of your feet, ready to explode at any moment. The key to lessening our anger is our ability to minimize stress. Final line. The more stress we're under, the more likely it is that anger will make its appearance. Our goal is to reduce stress. And so I want to just encourage you in our time together. I'm going to be really, really practical, not an outline. I'm not going to go to all kind of different texts. I basically want to give some practical wisdom about how to reduce stress in your life. I am a type A personality. I have been a workaholic. I have been characterized by being driven. I've lived in a very high-pressured world in sort of the California pace, and I've pastored anything from a member church of about 35 people, where 34 of them are related. That produced a lot of stress, to 6,000 or 7,000 people coming through the doors every 6 or 7 days, and a very large staff and big budgets, and being totally overwhelmed. And so all I want to know is I understand what it's like. And I just want to walk through some very practical ways that people far wiser than me and many things that I've experienced that might help you. Number one stress reducer is eliminate hurry. I'll never forget listening to a tape, I think it was by John Ortberg, and he was talking about a book that he had read by Dallas Willard. And then he met with Dallas Willard, and he was ready to take. It was when John moved from the West Coast earlier. He went to teach at a large church in Chicago and has since gone back to California. But when he was ready to take that big step, and it was a big, big, big church, and he was going to be the teaching pastor with a team of guys, and he met with Dallas Willard, and he said, you know, you're a wise man in the things of God. You've written, books on the spiritual disciplines. What piece of advice could you give me as I take my family into all this responsibility and all this pressure and all that's I'm going to face? And he said, I got my pen out, and he said, I'm going to take lots of notes, and this is Dallas Willard, and he's going to, and he leaned back, and he looked at me, he said, ruthlessly eliminate hurry from your life. And I said, okay, good. No, he said, that's it. Ruthlessly eliminate hurry from your life. Speed and godliness are incompatible. Speed and peace are incompatible. Hurry and loving others is incompatible. Hearing God's voice and hurry are incompatible. Ruthlessly eliminate hurry from your life. And I heard that at a time when our church was going through some significant growth, a capital campaign, a building campaign. Someone mistakenly took a couple of the messages and stuck them on a local radio station, and then some other station put it on some other station, and that started down the road. And to say that I was under pressure and living a hurried life would be an understatement. And I think there's times in our life where God will give us a message that is so for us that the entire trajectory of our future can be changed if we'll just obey that one word for us in that moment. And I remember thinking to myself, and then Ortberg is a tremendous teacher. If you've never read any of his books, I just highly recommend him. And so I remember deciding I'm going to ruthlessly eliminate hurry from my life. I mean, I was the guy, the plane door, it's leaving, one more person's getting on. Ingram gets on, okay, sits down, briefcase, got to do some work, doing this, getting to a meeting 1 minute just before it starts because you can't be late, but got to do 5 things just before you get there, multitasking all the time, talking on the phone, answering email on the computer, and 3 other things if I could. And he gave some practical ways to do it. And so I went into training. I literally went into training. I took some of his suggestions. Number one, for 2 years, I drove in the right-hand lane of the freeway. I mean, it was just going to drive in the right-hand lane. I'm not going to be in a hurry. I'm not going to count how many cars go by in the toll lane. If I get in this lane right here, I think, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, the yellow car got in with me, and oh man, I should have picked that line. You know what that tells you about your mindset? You must be really, really important. You must be so important that you have to get wherever you're going that matters so much more than everybody else. What I realized, my hurry was rooted in arrogance and what he called grandiosity. My being overextended was rooted in my grandiosity. For all the right reasons, doing really pretty significant things for God, I had come to believe unconsciously, it wasn't willfully, that I'd become indispensable. I had to be everywhere and do everything, and I had to hurry, and the more of it I could do, the more God would be pleased. I also went into the discipline of when I went to the grocery line of going to the longest line instead of the shortest one. It's painful. But then I just, hey, how you doing? Good. So you shop here often? Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. You? No, I just come, my wife sends me for stuff, and, I pick up what I can remember. It's usually the wrong brand or something. But so do you live around here? And you know what happened? I started relating to people again. Pretty soon, the knots in my stomach when I was driving, because I always had to, I could tell you when you get off this ramp, if you go in the left-hand lane for the first 2.5 miles, then if you go to the right-hand lane because the exit comes this way, then you get back in the right-hand lane, then you can, I was always in a hurry. And I began to slow down. And it's really amazing that just the quality of life. I did something weird. I always tried to figure out how, let's see, they say you have to be there. This was before 9/11. You had to be there so, like an hour before flights. And so I would everything was down to the wire. And then I decided, something? I think I'm going to get there an hour and a half early, sometimes 2 hours. And I'm going to get there early, and I happen to like a very good cup of coffee. I'm going to get a very good cup of coffee. I'm going to put my feet up. I'm going to think about what's going on. I think I'm going to spend a little time writing in my journal. I'm going to thank God for some of the people in my life, maybe return a few calls. I think I'm going to call some people while I wait have you ever just opened your phone and just thought, I wonder who haven't I talked to lately? Not for no reason. Bob, Tampa. Probably get a voicemail. That's okay. Hey, Bob. Beep. This is Chip. You know what? I'm sitting in the airport in Dallas, and I just want to remind you, God loves you, Bob. And you remember 2 years ago when we had that little meeting? You came to my mind today. I love you. You are a friend like few I've ever had. And I hope you're doing well today. God bless you. And I just started doing some spontaneous, non-urgent, not having to get it done, eliminating hurry from my life. Now, do I have some regression now and then? You bet. But I still get to airports early. I don't always drive in the right-hand lane all the time. But for a period of time, I just got that I got to get there attitude out of me. And it made a huge difference. I read a poem that many of you will recognize. And it was about that classic "Slow Me Down, Lord." And then after it, there were some observations that we made. When I'm in a hurry, I don't notice the flowers blooming alongside the road. When I'm in a hurry, there does seems to be more irritating drivers on the road than normal. When I'm in a hurry, I don't strike up friendly conversations with those around me. When I'm in a hurry, I avoid people, places, and things that take time and energy and effort. When I'm in a hurry, I pretend not to see the person behind me in line who only has a few items when I have a cart full of groceries. When I'm in a hurry, my heart pounds and my muscles are tense and my mind races. When I'm in a hurry, I rush through the day and I rush by people. When I'm in a hurry, I don't ask people how they really are Or if I do, I don't stick around to hear the answer. When I'm in a hurry, my devotional life is a task to get done instead of a time to treasure. When I'm in a hurry, I'm abrupt with people. When I'm in a hurry, it feels like life is a race to be run. When I'm in a hurry, I get angry more easily and more often. When I'm not in a hurry, I enjoy my food more. When I'm not in a hurry, I smile more and just feel calmer. When I'm not in a hurry, life seems to be a lot more enjoyable and less stressful. When I'm not in a hurry, I'll ask about others, about themselves, how they're doing, and I actually like hearing what they have to say. When I'm not in a hurry, my times in prayer are more meaningful. When I'm not in a hurry, I think I'm actually a nicer person, more thoughtful and kinder to others. And when I'm not in a hurry, I'm more patient, loving, understanding, and tolerant. When I'm not in a hurry, things just don't bother me as much. See, we can talk about anger and the A, B, C, D, and it's a secondary emotion, but your AQ, your anger quotient, will be determined by your E, environment, plus your P, perspective, times your willingness to obey, Ephesians 4:26. So eliminate hurry. Second is downsize your expectations. Most of us try to do too much too soon, and we feel overwhelmed, and it puts us under pressure. And because our expectations are so high and we're under pressure, then anger bubbles out. Most dramatic experience ever. And this is not sort of my biography, but I just want to tell you how life really works. I think sometimes people get up and they come to a place like this. I mean, you know, the Billy Graham Center. Are you kidding? Can't even believe I get to be here, let alone speak. And so people think you're way smarter than you are, way more holy than you are, and all of us are exactly the same, ordinary people with regular ups and downs. And in seminary, I had a conviction that my wife should be home with our kids. And that was a really important conviction because that meant I needed to support us and go to school full time, which was really hard. And so I would get up at about 4:30 in the morning and study Greek until 7, catch a carpool. And then the carpool, I'd go to work from let's call it work, went to seminary from 7 until about 4:30. And I would either read or be in class 100% of the time, come home, play with the kids, eat dinner, go to work at 6:30, get home at 11, do it again. So I was under lots of pressure. And where I went to school, they wanted 3 years of Greek and 2 years of Hebrew. And it wasn't always that it was so hard, but it was just so much to do. And I remember a guy that became a great mentor and a friend for the last 25 years was Howard Hendricks. And actually went to school to be around him. And I'll never forget one day he had a group of us together and, you know, we were kind of whining about our lives and, you know, demands. And he has this funny, you know the problem, don't you? You know, no, Prof, what's the problem? The problem is you guys don't get enough C's. What do you mean? You don't get enough C's. He had this funny way of, you know, always doing like this with his nose. And C's, what do you mean? Yeah. You're a bunch of smart guys here. You came from schools where you're smart guys, and you think getting A's is where it's at. I got news for you guys. God doesn't care whether you get A's. Secondly, no one's going to look at your resume, whether you got A's or not. You're competitive, driven, carnal guys. Get some C's. Love your wives. Have some fun, you know. And so I was involved in ministry, and I was involved in working, and it was like someone just took the expectations and said, and I wasn't probably near as smart as a lot of guys, but I was always was one of those students that could figure out what was going to be on the test. So I always got really good grades. I'm just kind of street smart, but I'm not like super academic. You know, when Ken Boa speaks, I just take notes and go, man, like, dude, where do you get a brain like that? I mean, he's just smart. You know, I take their smart stuff and get it for us regular people. And but I felt that pressure, and I remember, again, I made a decision. And I looked at, and I said, okay, this Greek class, zillion hours, I got to read all these books. I'm supposed to have all these, let's see, 2,000 words memorized and all this, and that's worth 10% of my grade. And when I get out, a computer has all those words somewhere. So, okay, 10%, that gets me from 100 to a 90. I'm not going to do that. And then this other thing, you're supposed to read this, and that. Well, I want to learn to do the exegetical work, this. That's what will help me be the man God wants me to be. I'm not doing that. That's only 5%. And so I started to go the last couple years, and I would go to a professor and say, I just want you to know I'm not sloughing off. It's not that I don't care about you. It's not that I don't think what you're doing is important. Is that all these words are in a book. When you do the little quizzes on the vocabulary, I won't do well. I'm not even going to try. I'm starting your class with a B. Okay? And I just bought myself 7 hours a week. And it'll probably make me a better dad, a way better husband. And I just went through my classes. Now, you know what? As crazy as Prof was, even after doing that, most all of us, we just got B's and A's anyway. But it was just that, who is putting the invisible gun to your head that says your house has to be absolutely spotless all the time? Who's putting the invisible gun to your head that says you always have to return every call the same day, or that this new thing, beep, 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 an email comes, oh my gosh, I got to return the... I mean, who made these rules? I didn't get that. It's been 7 minutes and they haven't returned my email yet. Why, if I'm doing something over here that's the will of God, how does someone electronically shoot something through a satellite that says, it's now the most important thing in my life? Where do we start doing that? If I didn't know better, that would be stupid. That would just be stupid. And then we get so overwhelmed. I've done this. Have you ever done this? You get sort of those, they're not quite spam. They're like from Harry and David's and different people. You order some stuff now and then, or Delta Airlines is telling me, new fares. Have you ever felt like you're so overwhelmed that you want to feel like you've accomplished something? And I sit at my computer, delete that one, delete that. Have you ever done that? Like the day is going so overwhelmed, and I feel like I've done Harry and David, that one's gone. Delta Airlines, that's gone. There's 3 advertisements gone. Boy, do I feel good about myself. Is this nuts? Anyway, 3, learn to say no. I was privileged to get some mentoring from Chuck Swindoll, and as the radio was growing, every year they'd have this dinner, and we'd get a chance, and somehow I got to sit next to him, and every year for about 7 or 8 years, he literally took me for about a half hour, put his arm around me, and basically gave me that, now young man, here's what you need to remember. And it was amazing. And so I remember one year, he said, one of the greatest things you'll ever have to learn to say no, kindly, artfully, and with excellence. And he said, it will save you so much. I mean, people need to know you would love to, but the answer is no. And I thought, wow, that is, I didn't really understand what he meant. And then there was a certain book that I thought would be really important, and, we were friends, and so I called him or wrote him and asked him if he would endorse the book. And I got the nicest, most excellent, kindest letter. That I felt like when I got done reading that letter, I was next to Cynthia, maybe the 2nd or 3rd most important person in Chuck Swindoll's life. Wow. No. I mean, it was just like, Chip, I appreciate you so much and what you've done, and as I glance this is going to have a great impact. I'm so excited, and our times together, and, our board and the priorities, they've just limited what I can do. I would love to do it, but I just can't. Learn to say no, kindly. Don't take stuff on in church. Don't do stuff for friends. Don't let guilt drive you to get your schedule, because under stress, when you're doing stuff you don't feel really called to do, you get resentment and you're going to have more anger. Number 4, admit mistakes and imperfections. If we could just liberate one another, one of the core values, we only have 4 at Living on the Edge, and we did it with the acronym LOTE. And the L is for live it out. We got to be what we want others to become. And the O is for own your stuff. Don't blame. Don't tell someone else. It wasn't on time. It was, you're late. I love it when someone says, one of the new guys that's working with us, and he was executive pastor of a huge church of about 13,000 people, and has all this capacity and had this great reputation, and I get this, he just started working with us 6 or 7 months ago, and I get this email, hey Chip, sorry man, haven't done this in years, I thought my plane was to leave at this time. It's no one else's fault. I didn't look at the thing. I missed my plane. I'll miss the meeting. I blew it. Sorry. I wrote him an email back. I said, hey, Rick, let me tell you this. You made my day. Thanks so much. You didn't tell me it was someone else's fault. You didn't tell me your assistant blew it. You didn't tell me that you'd renegotiated things and thought it might be better to come a second day, but you're really sorry. There was no smoke. There was no mirrors. You made a mistake. Welcome to the human race. You owned your stuff. Way to go. Keep it up. Do you realize how much stress we're under to slightly bend the truth to say the traffic was really heavy? Of course it was very heavy, and you left a half hour late, right? You know, you would really love to do it. You would never want to do that in a million years, right? But you can't. You know, just, you forgot. How about that one? You know, like, you know what? I forgot to call you back. There was one, I was checking my messages from somewhere, and I thought, and I called the guy, and this is human, I think. I thought to myself, okay, I was busy, I was traveling. There's got to be a legitimate excuse. This is an important relationship, and it's been 4 days. And then God thought, I had this little thought from the Holy Spirit. Why don't you just tell him you forgot? Isn't that what happened? Yeah. That doesn't sound very spiritual, Lord. Yeah, I know. But is it the truth? Yeah. Do you think human beings ever forget, Chip? Yeah. Why don't you just tell him you forgot? Okay. So I called this guy and I said, hey, it was really one of those real important type things. And I said, hi, this is Chip. And by the way, I realize it's been a number of days and, you know, sounded pretty urgent. And I just forgot. And, you know, it was the other end of the phone was, it wasn't like, you are a terrible person. You will now be sent to, if there's a purgatory, you will now go there. I mean, it was just, hey man, I understand. What happens? Admit your mistakes. 5, laugh more often. Don't take life or yourself so seriously. Proverbs 17:22 says, a cheerful heart is good medicine. And all I can tell you is, this is my time tonight. I just want to help you all with some real practical things about how life really works. And sometimes we think the really important people or whoever they are, I can just tell you, I don't know who some of your spiritual heroes are, but some of mine I've discovered are the funniest people in the world and the most fun to be around. A number of years ago, I spoke at Saddleback and went out to dinner with Rick Warren and a few of the associates. I thought we were going to get kicked out of the place. We laughed so much. If you've ever heard Erwin Lutzer of Moody Church, he does the best Billy Graham imitation in the world. He's hilarious. James McDonald, you do not want to drive in the same car without covering your eyes. He's a nut, and he's laughing all the time. I mean, the people that I know that have inspired me and helped me have a great sense of humor, and they laugh, and they have fun. And I just want to encourage you to, a lot of the anger, a lot of the stress will leave when you just lighten up a little bit and enjoy yourself. Number 6 is take care of yourself. I mean, this is one that, you know, you almost don't want to say because it's going to go over the top, but I'll just say it just so it can have good stewardship, is you need enough rest, you need to eat good food, and you need to work out enough to keep your body in shape. And when you don't do those things, when you don't have very much rest, when you eat stuff that's no good for you, and you don't do any kind of exercising, you're going to be angry more often. It's just the way it is. Less sleep, less energy. And, you know, I don't think everyone has to be, quote, a health nut, but I think you ought to ask yourself, if this really is the temple of God, 1 Corinthians 6:19-20, if this really is the temple of God, am I treating it like God's temple? And then, you know, you just start slow with where you're at and start putting more good stuff instead of bad stuff in your body. And if you've never jogged or anything, you just start walking and just do little by little by little. But you take care of yourself and you'll just find your anger. By the way, a lot of people that have not good eating habits and don't work out, guess who you're angry at? Yeah. My background in undergraduate and grad work, I did in undergrad, but then in just a few classes in grad work in psychology. And there's this weird thing, the way our minds work, is that when people don't like themselves or they feel guilty or bad, they feel like they need to punish themselves. And we will actually create behaviors to produce outcomes to make equalize things inside of us. And so people will eat and do things that are bad for them that create outcomes that sort of say, wow, this is the kind of person I am. This is what I deserve. Now, that as weird as that sounds, it's true. But take care of yourself. You matter. You're important. You're precious. You're loved. And then finally, know what triggers your anger. And let me give you an acronym here, HALT. This is one I got from my assistant who was in a car wreck, and she's okay. I realize sometimes I make these passing comments and, well, what happened with the car wreck? She's fine, but it was real serious. But she was an amazing assistant. Her name was Noreen, and she worked for Dr. Stanley, the old Charles. I mean, not that, I guess, I don't know if, anyway, there's Charles and there's Andy. This is Charles. And she remembered him saying this little acronym, HALT. When you're hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, stop. HALT. Don't make a big decision. Don't go anywhere. Don't try and take on something. And I guess what I got from that acronym is what I found is when I'm hungry, I'm a lot unnice to be with, right? I'm angry. When I'm lonely, my anger quotient goes up. When I'm tired, you don't even want to go there, right? And so I just want to encourage you some real practical learnings about your AQ. Your anger quotient is going to be your environment. That's what we talked about here. Plus your perspective. We'll look at that in just a second. That's times obedience to 426 is in real life. These are things that will minimize the stress and help you with your AQ. As you listen to today's teaching, did it begin to get clear to you that there is a real correlation between the anger that you experience and the stress that you're under? Now the question is, what are you going to do with that? I mean, I gave you 6 or 7 things that I learned from Dr. Becca Johnson about reducing stress. But let's focus on the first one. I think we live very hurried lives. I don't know how many times with our staff we've talked about how do we slow down the pace. And what I want you to do in your groups is, this is where we need each other. I want you to talk very specifically this week about one thing you can do to simplify your life and slow down the pace. Not talk about it, not, whine with one another about how busy we all are. I want you to stop and say, if we don't want to be this angry, we have to slow down. Stop hurrying. As one author says, ruthlessly eliminate hurry from your life. So I want you to go around the room, let's get real, let's get honest, and then next week, let's hold each other accountable. Go ahead.